She married my father, she moved into our house, she wore short dresses. Called me by my first name. Smiled. Too long, at first, I tried to ignore it, then one night, the line blurred, and once it was crossed, there was no going back. We kept it a secret, a dangerous, forbidden secret, wrapped in whispers, hidden glances, and locked doors. The front door shut behind him with a final click that echoed in the quiet hallway. Ethan dropped his duffel bag on the wooden floor, blinking as his eyes adjusted to the familiar interior, except it wasn't quite the same, the furniture had changed. The photographs. The scent in the air. No longer his mother's faint vanilla or the dusty silence of a house left untouched, it smelled fresh, feminine. Intoxicating, then came the click of heels on tile. A slow rhythm. A pause. And her, she descended the staircase in a robe that shimmered like champagne in the late sun. Celeste. His stepmother, younger than expected. Stunning. With waves of auburn hair, skin like polished ivory, and a mouth that didn't need to smile to seduce. You're Ethan. Her voice was low, honeyed. You've grown. He swallowed. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't know Dad was away. He's gone until Friday. Her gaze was unreadable. I didn't know you'd arrive early. Train was fast. She nodded slowly. Welcome home. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Ethan lay in bed, pulse racing, haunted by the image of her at the stairs, bare calves, thin robe, the scent of rosewater that clung to his nostrils. Around midnight, he wandered into the kitchen. The fridge's hum filled the silence. Then a voice behind him. Couldn't sleep. He turned. She was in the same robe, looser now, open just enough to show the swell of one breast. Barefoot. Holding a glass of red wine. Just. Restless, he muttered. Celeste took a sip, then crossed the room. You look like him. Dad? She smirked. But not in the ways that matter. His breath caught as she came close. Very close. Her fingers brushed his bare forearm, lingering. I'll make tea, she said. Unless you prefer something stronger. I'm good. He swallowed. You should get some rest. Her smile deepened. Rest is overrated. The next day, the heat pressed against the windows. Ethan jogged, showered, tried to stay distracted. But she was everywhere, in the clink of wineglasses being washed, the soft humming through bathroom doors, the outline of her silhouette backlit by thin curtains, and that afternoon. When he walked past the open master bedroom, the door wasn't fully shut, she stood in front of the mirror, back to him, towel wrapped low around her hips, breasts bared as he froze. She saw him in the mirror but didn't flinch. Her hand moved slowly over her collarbone. Down, like what you see? She asked, voice silk that he backed away, breathless. Later that night, he found her by the pool. A black bikini. Martini in hand, she watched him approach, eyes glittering. Care for a swim? He hesitated. Didn't bring a suit. Neither did I. Her hands reached behind her neck, untying the top. The fabric slipped down, revealing full, firm breasts. His jaw tensed, she stepped into the water, then turned. Breasts glistening under moonlight. Come on, Ethan. He stripped to his boxers and slid into the pool, underwater. Her hands found him. On his chest. His stomach. Lower. He gasped as her fingers brushed the hardness beneath his boxers. Her lips followed, soft and demanding, kissing his jaw, his throat, his mouth. Then she whispered, I've wanted this since the moment I saw you. He pulled her to him. Her legs wrapped around his waist. He lifted her against the pool's edge, her body slippery, perfect. She guided him into her, wet, tight, gasping, and he thrust deeper, harder, as her moans echoed off the water. It was raw. Desperate. Forbidden, they came together in breathless silence. The days blurred, they fucked everywhere, on the couch, the stairs, against the shower tiles. His hands memorized her body. Her lips carved his skin with lust. It wasn't just sex. It was war against morality. And he didn't want to stop. One morning, she crawled into his bed before sunrise, naked, hair wild. "I dreamt of you," she murmured, kissing his chest. "Of your cock inside me. Of your mouth on my breasts." Ethan rolled over her, his lips trailing down her body. He kissed her thighs, spread her open, and tasted her slowly. She writhed, moaning his name, clawing at the sheets. "I shouldn't want this," she whispered. "But God. I need it." But cracks began to show. She grew restless. Possessive. He caught her smelling his shirt, deleting messages from his phone. She whispered things that unsettled him. "If I were younger. You'd never leave. You're not mine, but I want you to be. If he dies, would you stay with me?" He started avoiding her. But she always found him. Cornered him. Seduced him, until one night, when he pushed her away. "This is wrong. We passed that line weeks ago," she snapped. "I need to leave." She slapped him. Then kissed him. Then begged that he gave in. On the kitchen counter that night, she cried as he entered her. She dug her nails into his back, whispering, "Don't leave me. Don't leave me." The morning he left for college, she didn't say goodbye. She stood at the porch in a robe, watching from the shadows. No words. No tears, but he saw her eyes, red-rimmed. Empty. Years passed that he tried to forget. But women never felt like her. Never moved like her. Never smelled like lust and lavender. Sometimes, alone at night, he'd remember her body. Her voice that he'd wake hard. Needy. Guilty that he never told a soul, because some sins aren't made to be confessed, that they're meant to burn. Forever. 4 years later, Ethan stood outside the familiar house, suitcase in hand, heart pounding like the first time. The garden was neater now. The roses had been trimmed. The porch light flickered like it always had. He hadn't planned to come back, but when his father died, suddenly. Quietly, of a heart attack in his sleep, it was inevitable. And so here he was, at the door he swore he'd never open again. That it swung open before he could knock. She stood there in black, skin pale, eyes sharp as ever. "Celeste, still beautiful. Still dangerous. You came," she said, her voice trembling. "I had to," Ethan replied. "He was my father." A pause. Then, "You're staying here tonight." It wasn't a question. The funeral passed in a blur. Condolences. Church pews. The smell of lilies. Ethan watched her from afar, the grieving widow who never once shed a tear in public. But behind closed doors, everything was different. That night, the wine came out. The old record player spun something soft and slow. She wore a black satin slip under her robe. Her legs were bare. Ethan sat on the couch, whiskey in hand, trying not to stare. "You've grown colder," she murmured. "And you've stayed the same." "I'm not." Silence. "I want to see him," Ethan said. She nodded, but when Elias entered the room, Ethan's voice caught in his throat. The boy had his eyes. His posture. Even the way he squinted at strangers, like trust was something earned with silence. They played chess that afternoon. Elias beat him, then asked, "Did you love my mother?" Ethan froze. Celeste stood in the doorway. Watching. "I still do," Ethan said softly, and something dangerous, passed through her expression. That night, after Elias went to sleep, Celeste poured wine. Her dress was too short for comfort, her perfume subtle but intoxicating. She didn't ask. She just walked to him, straddled his lap, and kissed him like it hadn't been 10 years. "You'll always be mine," she whispered. He didn't resist, not when she pulled down his zipper. Not when she slid him inside her, wet and tight. Not even when she cried his name in the dark, biting into his shoulder like a woman tasting her last meal. The next morning, Elias watched them from the staircase that he didn't say a word, but something in him changed. Elias wasn't like other boys that he didn't cry when he scraped his knee. Didn't shout when he lost. Instead, he observed everything. He knew when his mother was lying. He knew when her smiles were meant to deflect, not comfort, and now he knew the man who came once a year, Ethan, was more than a family friend. He'd seen it, the way they touched. The way she moaned through the thin walls. The soft, broken God, yes, Ethan that made his stomach knot and his mind burned. At 12, Elias didn't fully understand what he felt, but he knew what betrayal looked like. He began watching them more closely. Ethan stayed longer this time, 2 nights, then 3. He laughed more freely, moved through the house like it belonged to him. Elias hated that point. One night, he knocked on his mother's bedroom door. She opened it in a robe. Slightly flushed. "What is it, baby?" He looked past her. Ethan was half-dressed. Shirt unbuttoned. "I can't sleep," Elias said. "Nightmares." She kissed his forehead. "Come. Sleep with me tonight." Ethan froze, but Celeste just turned to him, smiled coolly, and said, "On the couch, please." That night, Elias lay next to her, pretending to sleep, his ear pressed to her heartbeat. And he whispered, just loud enough, "Who is my father?" Her hand paused in his hair. "You already know. I want you to say it." Silence. Then, "He was the only man I ever really wanted." The next morning, he was still there. They fucked like animals. Like enemies. Teeth, nails, blood. She bit his shoulder hard enough to bruise. He spanked her until she cried. They broke a lamp. The neighbors called the cops. No one answered the door. She slept with her leg over his waist that he stared at the ceiling. Over the next few months, Elias changed. He became quieter. Darker. His drawings turned from dinosaurs to shadows. Eyes without faces. Hands with claws. He broke his cousin's finger during a chess match. Said it was an accident. Celeste sent him to therapy. He charmed the therapist into tears. On his 13th birthday, Ethan sent a letter. Inside was a photo, Elias as a baby, curled on Ethan's chest. And a note, "You don't have to call me Dad. But I'll always be yours if you want me." Elias tore it to pieces. That night, he walked into his mother's room after midnight. She was reading, in a silk nightgown. Without a word, he climbed into her bed and curled against her like he had when he was younger. But something about his weight, his silence, it wasn't childish anymore. "Elias," she whispered. "I don't want you to need anyone else." She froze. "I'm your mother." "I know." He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. His silence said more. From the hallway, the housekeeper passed by. Heard nothing, but in the room, Celeste was staring into the dark, for the first time, afraid. She barely slept. Even when Elias was away at school, his presence haunted the house. She checked the locks twice. Hid the knives. Burned the journals. But he always found a way to remind her. He was watching. Sometimes he left notes. "I saw the way you looked at Ethan. You want him again. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been born? I dreamed about you again. You were screaming, but not from pain." She tried to talk to Ethan. He was distant. Cold. Worn down by guilt and years of shame. "This is your fault," she whispered. "And yours," he replied. They didn't touch each other again. Then came the incident. A girl from Elias's school, found in the library. Skirt torn. Crying. Said he kissed her without asking. Said he told her she reminded him of someone. They couldn't prove anything, but Celeste knew. She confronted him that night. He didn't deny it. "She had your eyes," he said softly. "I wanted to see if it felt the same." "You're sick." "No, you are. I'm just what you made." She slapped him again. He didn't flinch. He stepped closer. "You created me with your sins. You fed me with secrets. You made me sleep in your bed, hear your moans, smell him on your skin. Tears streamed down her face. You've wanted me since the day you saw yourself in me, he said. And now I'm old enough to take what's mine. She tried to run, packed a bag. Called a cab. Left the lights on, but he was already waiting in the car. You really thought you could leave me? He said. She screamed. He didn't hit her. He just leaned in, gently, and kissed her on the cheek. I'll let you go, he said. For now. But you'll come back. You always do. She drove 3 hours to Ethan's apartment. He opened the door in shock. Celeste collapsed into his arms. He's not our son anymore, she sobbed. He's becoming you. Ethan didn't speak. He poured her a drink. Watched her hands shake. He's obsessed with me, she whispered. I was obsessed with you too. This is different. Is it? Ethan asked. Or is he just honest about it? That night, they slept in the same bed, but they didn't touch. They held each other like survivors of a war neither of them had won, and in the dark, Celeste whispered, I don't think I can stop him. Ethan replied, then we burn it all. The drive back to the house was silent. Celeste and Ethan didn't speak. Words were useless now. They had raised a creature born of shadow, of lust, guilt, and lies. And he was waiting. The lights were on when they arrived, the front door unlocked. Too quiet. Inside, Elias was seated at the dining table. A single candle lit his face from below. He was calm. Dressed in black. Hands folded. Waiting. Welcome home, he said. Celeste swallowed. This isn't home. Then why did you come back? Ethan stepped forward. This ends tonight. Elias smiled. Yes. It does. There was no yelling. No begging, just a conversation. Elias stood. Walked toward them slowly. Do you remember the first time? He asked Ethan. The first time you fucked her. Ethan's fists clenched. She was 29. You were 19. My age. He turned to his mother. Do you remember what you whispered into his ear that night? When you rode him in the guest room while Dad was away? Celeste closed her eyes. I do, Elias said softly. I've heard it in my dreams. He walked over to the fireplace. Picked up a photo of the three of them, smiling. Burned it. Fire cleanses, he whispered. Maybe it's the only way to be reborn. Then he pulled something from his coat. A knife. Ethan moved first. They struggled. Screamed. Crashed into furniture. Celeste tried to grab the weapon, but Elias was fast. Too fast. His blade sliced Ethan's shoulder. Blood. Shouting. Glass breaking. Stop. Celeste screamed. Elias froze. The knife trembled in his grip. I'm your mother, she said. And I love you. No, you don't. He was crying now. You loved him. You never loved me. She stepped closer. I loved you more than I ever loved myself. She kissed his forehead. I'm sorry. Then she grabbed the knife, and plunged it into her own stomach. Elias screamed. Ethan caught her as she fell. Blood soaked her nightgown. Call someone. Ethan gasped, but Elias was on the floor, rocking, shaking. No, 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 no. Sirens. Lights. White walls. She survived, barely. Elias was taken away. Not in cuffs. But in silence. Into state care. Psych evaluations. No charges pressed, but something broke that night, and none of them would ever be whole again. 5 years later, Ethan sat alone in a quiet apartment. No photos. No sounds. That he still received letters, never signed, just pages filled with one phrase, written over and over, she was always mine. Ethan never returned to that house. It was sold, eventually. The garden overgrown. The paint peeled. A memory sealed behind glass, like something too dangerous to touch again. That he lived in silence now, no lovers. No photos. Just the echo of her voice in the quietest hours, whispering things he could never forget. Sometimes, he thought he saw Elias on the street. A flash of those eyes. That walk. A boy now grown. A man sculpted from all the pieces they had broken together, and at night, he dreamed of Celeste, her silk robe floating in candlelight. Her mouth warm and cruel. Her body trembling under his. Her blood on his hands. She had survived, but neither of them truly lived again, because some love stories don't end. They rot, quietly, forever.